welcome back to another episode of Take Back Mondays, the podcast helping you love Mondays again. Today, I'm super excited to have a special guest from way down under. So it's been a little tough to coordinate getting him onto the show, but I finally was successful. Welcome to the show, Scotty Schindler. So Scotty is an international speaker, advisor, mentor, and a CEO and startup founder. And most recently, an author of his first book, which is amazing, and working on his second book. So we're going to hear more about that today. What you should remember is his famous system, which is called System 1357, which we're going to learn about today. He's a sales master. He's a leadership coach. He's doing such amazing things with his community. So welcome to the show, Scotty.
Hey, great to be here.
So happy to have you today. So you've been quite a busy guy. Scotty, tell me, before we get into what you're doing with System 1357, I'd like to know the man behind that. So what led you to this current spot?
Well, where I am today it's very interesting, right? I had no plans or vision to do what I'm doing today, the way I'm doing what I'm doing today. So I exited and retired early when I was 46. And then I got asked to speak for Google. So I spoke for Google with their startup grind, their entrepreneur program. And when I was doing that talk, I spoke about a couple of my really cool things that were Scottyisms, like business judo and time duplication. And people went, oh, wow. And they asked me questions. I went, oh, they like that. So then I thought I'd better register that stuff. I trademarked it, blah, blah, blah. And then I got asked to do a bit more speaking again. And, you know, the reality is all I've done all my adult life is run sales teams and, you know, through leadership. And then obviously when I had my own company, it was the same thing. So that's all I've done. So it was easy for me to speak. So where I am today is probably because of COVID. I got really bored. I started doing more and more, and all of a sudden people really liked it. So now in my part-time or spare time, I'm actually, you know, I guess enhancing and refining the System 1357. And that's what I've done for the last 30 years. So System 1357 is a compilation of 30 years plus experience in sales, leadership, and business development. So that's sort of where I am now.
And you've been a CEO for most of your life. So up until the time you retired young, you ran a real estate company. Is that correct?
It was a real estate software company. So I did 10 years selling insurance, door to door, physically cold calling. And I did that for 10 years. So from 18 to 28. And then I decided to start my own business, which I didn't think was going to turn into a big entrepreneurial journey. I had no idea, but I did want to start a really smart business. And I managed to do that. It took a couple of years. And by 2002, I registered the company ReNet, which was a real estate software company. And depending on how you look at it, it was either a 12, a 15 or 18-year journey. And there's a long story to that, but I won't get into it now, where I was the CEO and the startup founder, and then I exited and retired early. So I wasn't always a CEO. So I did 10 years, obviously, apprenticeship, working for another company, learning the ropes, getting taught all the good things from an American insurance company. And that apprenticeship was, I don't know how I did 10 years of it, but it was the best thing ever.
I love it. I love it. And so you really had your feet on the ground, going door to door, of trying to approach people. That I don't imagine that can get any better in terms of experience of learning human psychology and learning what you later developed into the method that you teach today that's in your book. So we want to cover those steps in your book, 1357. So tell us just in a nutshell, what is the System 1357?
So the book itself is on the 5. So I'll do the 1 first in the triangle. So the triangle is the success triangle. It's the leadership, sales, and business. So if you've got good development, good systems and processes, and you've got a balance between your sales, your leadership, and business development, you're going to have a good chance at having a successful business. Within that is the 1357. Now, 1 is people first, people over everything. It starts with people first. Okay, you first too. It's really hard to drink from an empty cup, you know, so you look after yourself, then you look after the others, but always people first. The 3 is the conditions, actions, and needs. So you do a can analysis on everything. So when you're doing leadership, people development, conditions, actions, needs. When you're in sales, it's really hard to sell something people don't need, or if you can't create a need, you got to do sales, conditions, actions, needs. Business, it's the same thing, right? And it does go in order. So 1, 3, 5, then 7. Although the reality is people can be different stages at any time.
Mhm.
So the 5 is the 5 systems of successful people. So that's now your business judo, your time duplication, your business of thirds, the rule of 100, and sugar and cream. And that's the one that's the book that I've just released. Okay. And then the 7 is actually the 7 ways to manage time. It's the last one. And unfortunately, time's the last one we all get to, right? But anyway, it is the last thing. And that comes down to the 7 habits, I call it, of, effective time management. And that's school teacher hours. It's mud mapping. It's the 1,440 minutes a day. It's the rule of 10. It's smarter goals. It's the extra miler. And it's also the 1 turn at a time. I probably won't get a chance to go into the 7 today, but if you want to, I can. But certainly the one I have spent a fair bit of time on so far is the actual 5 systems, because these systems work. And if there's one thing I've learned in the last few years is most people don't actually have that system. They don't have that blueprint, that process, that acronym, that the way to follow what they're doing. So I've gone, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to release the 5 systems of successful people.
That's amazing. And where did you originally come up with this idea for the 5 systems? This is just through life experience, or did you have a mentor that helped you see this more clearly? Because this seems to be such a wise thing that not enough people understand.
Yeah. Well, I was mentored a lot through the 90s. And those 5 systems I had before I started the company ReNet. I had those in 2000, if that makes any sense. So the year 2000, I knew those 5 systems. All I did was implement those 5 systems over that period. Now, they're my own terminology of that. So in other words, business judo, I was taught mental judo. But when I decided to get into business, I'm going to do the same sorts of things, but do it in business this time. So I was taught mental judo. Scotty's version was, mental judo. Scotty's version was business judo. And the time duplication, I can't remember where that came from, but I knew I had to have time duplication. I had to be able to duplicate myself. I had to have duplicatable products, and I had to be able to duplicate my money when I made it. So anyway, I don't know exactly where that one came from. And the business of thirds, we had a strike rate card. So I learned all that sort of stuff, and in surfing. And then you go to the rule of 100, that's your checkpoints. So I learned that about leadership. So when people come and started in the business, that first 100 seconds, the first 100 minutes, the first 100 hours, right up to the first 100 months, right? There's these checkpoints. I learned all that during the 90s. And when it comes to sugar and cream, don't ever become the cream, right? Be the sugar, stay motivated, try to stay inspired, learn, constantly be learning. And if you ever get to be the cream, become the spoon instead, stir things up, motivate others. So always stay, never become the cream, because that's when you'll stop. And that's an attitude as much as anything else. So I was taught, in a sense, all those systems in the 90s, but they became my version of those systems. And in the book, I go into detail of all those different steps and what they really mean and how you can use them in your business. So that way, you can work smarter rather than harder too.
Well, I love your book. So thank you. I've read it and it's fabulous. I love these 5 systems. It's such a creative way of thinking about things, but actually so logical and such a great guideline, because I think business owners are making a lot of these mistakes. So I'm wondering if you could give us just 5 examples. So business judo, time duplication, business of thirds, rule of 100, sugar and cream. If you could give us an example where my readers could place themselves in relation to that. So starting with the business judo, what's the biggest kind of mistake you see entrepreneurs making, like as an example, that where business judo could completely solve that problem?
All right. So business judo, I'll start with the business judo. It starts as a bit of an attitude thing first, right? So positive mental attitude is the first thing. And it's not that people make mistakes, right? So entrepreneurs, look, nothing's going to work out all the time, every time. And we all know that deep down. But positive mental attitude doesn't mean things won't go wrong. And it's not just about being smiley and happy all the time. What it's about is your ability to be able to turn negatives into positives. In fact, it's your ability to be able to flip the narrative from disadvantages into advantages. So, or drop it. Like, it's just water under the bridge. I'm moving on. I'm moving forward. So business judo, it's not really a mistake that entrepreneurs make. But you know what makes entrepreneurs successful is that one ability to be able to flip completely disadvantages into advantages. Something's gone wrong. What do I need to do to flip that narrative into an advantage? And that's the number one thing successful people do. And that's positive mental attitude. I mean, business judo also includes collaboration, leverage, network, win-win-win situations. It includes all those sorts of things. And when you get to time duplication, I guess the number one thing there would be, people know they can't do it on their own, but they're scared to duplicate themselves. See, the one thing all successful people understand is they duplicate themselves, they duplicate their products, and they duplicate their money. And most people are scared to do all of those. Now, some people manage to do one of them. Few people get to do two, but very few people get to achieve all three. So they've got more than them running around doing the same work. They've got products that they only do once, but they get paid for over and over again. And while they sleep, they're making more money than they need. So they get scared to do it. So, but don't. Start with a small step. Start with duplicating some of your products, some of your abilities, your time with people, and get your money to work for you. Don't waste your money. And it's not really a mistake people make, but they're scared to actually do that next step, scared to let things go and duplicate.
I want to interject here because as a fellow business coach, I wanted to say that I've seen that they're not just afraid, but they don't know how to do that. So maybe someone listening will say, what do you mean duplicate myself? There's only one of me who cares about my business. You know how employees are. I need to oversee them and micromanage every move they make. They don't care about my business. I'm willing to work 100 hours a week, 120 hours a week. My employees just want to go home and have their beer. How can I possibly implement this idea? And they may just unfortunately be listening to what you're saying right now, but have so much skepticism that they're going to write it off. I had a conversation, and I'm going to be honest with you. I had a conversation yesterday about duplicating products. And the man was telling me, I'm building a software that I can help people with outbound sales. This is a real example. And he told me I'm going one by one to sell this software to different people, different mid-level managers or CEOs of very small companies. And I'm saying, let me build a software for you. Then he goes to the next person and says, let me build a software for you. And he was very arrogant. He said, I am such a good salesperson. I'm so good at outbound. I have such a high close rate. Everyone hires me to build their software. And I said, oh, that's great. So how much software can you actually build in 1 month? What about your team? Oh, I don't have a team. I do it all myself. And I said, okay, do you have a family? No, I'm a single guy. I said, oh, okay. And I said, so how's your fitness levels? Oh, I don't have time for that. I'm just on my computer 24/7 in the dark, in the day, working. And I said, so how long do you think you're going to be able to do that? And what happens when the right lady comes along, or the right whatever, and suddenly your time, it becomes more precious. And he just wrote it off like whatever, because I think he's young and he doesn't see things yet the way I see them or you see them. But my point was, he doesn't understand that you should build the software once and then license it to people,
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's exactly what I started to do in 2000. And people called me a trailblazer. And at the time, I didn't think so. And I still don't think so. I just saw the conditions, actions, and needs of the industry. And I went, I'm going to do that. And I did travel. I did accommodation and car yard. I did accommodation, real estate, and car yard. The real estate one was the one that took off. So they actually all worked, by the way. So who knows where I could have went if I'd have been a bit smarter and a bit more educated. But the real estate one worked and I followed that. But he should understand code reuse. You do the code once and you reuse it over and over again. That's software. That's how software works. It's a core function of software, not copy paste. Like, it's literally you create a function and then you call a function everywhere. We won't get into software and programming. But, a lot of people are scared in that. And the reality is they're dead set correct. No one will do the job as good as you. That's a fact. Because you've got the passion, you've got the drive, you've got the enthusiasm. There's a big chance they won't. But then again, they have skills that they're good at or better at than you. So, I just had a conversation today with a person, and he's now selling, and he wasn't ever doing it before. He's now paying $75 an hour to someone, but selling it at $125 an hour.
Mhm.
You say, how many of those can you afford to buy? As many as you want, right? As long as you're selling their $75 hours as 125 or 150 or whatever you want to charge, well, you can afford as many staff as you like, as long as they deliver what they say they're going to deliver and you manage that process. Well, then you can afford as many of those as you like, even if they're not as good as you. As long as they do what they say they're going to be, the graphic design, the web design. This is to use your guy as an example, right? There's things that those people can do. Onboarding process, support, training, while he's out selling. If he's a really good salesperson, we'll keep doing that. But get someone else to do the onboarding, that client retention, get someone else to do some of that stuff that allows him. It's a $5 job in his $50 hour. We'll duplicate that first. Let someone else do that.
Well, I had to stop you at that point with time duplication because I just don't want to rush through it, because I do see that as being a huge problem of the solopreneur who just thinks I'm the center of the earth and I can't do anything else. But when I built my VR agency, that's exactly how I built it, which I was the one doing business development, sales, marketing. My partner was doing operations and finances and legal and real estate, like taking care of the house. And my third partner was in charge of production. And he managed all the graphic designers, the video editors, the copywriters, the videographers, the 3D artists. And the three of us were a beautiful, beautiful team. And I know for sure we would never have achieved what we were able to achieve if only one of us had tried, because the director of production he couldn't barely speak with other people. He knew how to talk with artists, but if you put him in a business suit, he was looking around like, why am I here? Who are these people? And me, I can't shut up. I just talk and talk and talk. So I was bringing the clients in, and then the third partner was taking care of the bills, because that's not what I like to deal with. So we were a perfect team, and everyone was in their element of genius, doing their zone of genius. So I wanted to emphasize that before we move on, because I think people don't understand that second system.
You can't do it all on your own, whether you like it or not. You can't.
No.
And if you want to do it all on your own, that's okay. Make sure you're investing the money you're making so it works for you anyway. Because at some point you're going to get sick of working, or you're going to want to have a holiday, or you're going to want to do something else. At some point that's going to break. And you could get 4 years, you could even get 10 years doing it all on your own. But at some point it's going to break. So if you are doing it on your own, make sure you're duplicating your money and you're duplicating your products. So at least they can keep working for you when you're not. But better would be if you did all three. So when you decided to stop working, there was other people still working for you. That's what successful people understand. And that's why it's one of the 5 systems of successful people. They understand it and they do it.
Before we move on, I want to mention also about money, because we've talked about being a leader and duplicating yourself. We've talked about building maybe a software that you can license, of duplicating your product. Money, you mentioned that kind of on the side. What I see a lot of solopreneurs who may be listening to this doing is the first time they make really good money, like they've had, struggled, and suddenly they land a big client and they're like, woohoo. Immediately they go out and spend all the money, because in their mind, this money is more than they've made in the previous year as an employee. So they think, well, I earned this money. It's literally mine. So I'll just go out and spend it. And as a business coach, I often tell them, this isn't your money. You need to reinvest this money. You need to keep living as you would on your normal old salary, at least in the beginning. And you need to reinvest that extra money immediately into your business. So you don't see it. You don't even know you made this money. It's almost like a fake number. And it goes right back into growing your business, hiring better people, getting a better software, doing branding, doing more marketing. What do you think about my advice? Do you agree with that, or do you have another spin on it?
Well, there's two sides to it, right? So I do agree with it, but I also agree with, look, if you have a goal and you get a reward for your time, effort, and energy, well, great. But you've got to realize that that's not smart use of money. But it's okay if that was your goal, that if I achieve this and if I get that, well, I'm going to buy whatever it is. I'm going to go on that holiday. I'm going to buy the car. I'm going to buy whatever, or pay off the house would be the best one. Whatever, that's your goal. And if that's what motivates you and drove you to do that extra effort and go the extra mile, well, great. I'm 10 points. But what about the next sale? Then what are you going to do? What you need to start doing at some point is putting that money into things that make you more money. That's what successful people do. Either reinvest it back in the business or invest it into property, invest it into shares, whatever. You need your money working for you. You know, so at one point in time, you're going to go, I don't want to work anymore. And you need your money making more money.
Or your wife is going to tell you that you don't need to work anymore. Can't even tell you how many countless couples I've spoken with who are entrepreneur couples. And, you know, there's only a certain point where the spouse can sacrifice and say, I never see you. Like, we're married, you have kids with me, but I never see you anymore. And it comes down to the business or the marriage. And I hate to say this for some young guy like the man I spoke with yesterday, who's in his dream building his software. For him, he can't even imagine that. But I'm already looking 10 years down the road when he meets his lady, and his lady is like, you know what? You're not going to work 120 hours anymore. Otherwise, I'm out of here. So, you know, you have to think it's not just about reinvesting for the sake of the business. Your health, your relationships, your legacy too. Your grandkids might say, you know, we want you to take some more time off. So it gets complicated, but you and I are way down the road for some of the people listening who just are right now heads down, fully submerged into this workaholism. So I love this conversation.
And I did that. There was a period of time where I didn't have a holiday for 4 years either, right?
Right.
So here's page 80 and 81, where I talk about how those numbers scale and the exponential benefit of that over time, right? Of just investing $10,000 a year or making something that gets you an extra $10,000 a year. You know, it's simple stuff, right? But that's what successful people do. You know, so and if you want to work really hard and you set some goals, and I mean, I did that to pay off my first house. Well, great. I'm going to say, well done. But you're right. At some point, that's going to break. Like I did. I broke at 27. I went, hey, this isn't for me anymore. I'm going to change, and I'm going to get smarter. And that's where I come up with my life motto, my life catchphrase of strive for healthy, wealthy, and wise. And I've had that ever since I was 27. So all my decisions now are based on healthy, wealthy, and wise, because I wasn't healthy. I was working really hard, but I wasn't wealthy. So I wanted to be really wise in all my decisions. Yeah. So go back to that, the healthy, wealthy, and wise, right? And that mantra drove me to make all my decisions in life. You know what? Like I said, I wasn't healthy. I wasn't wealthy. And I didn't think I was very wise. I said that's the core value I now have. Interestingly enough, do you want me to share with you one thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
In 1999, I had 2 plaques made up. And that one had 3 quotes on it about, you know, who I was.
Give a man a fish. You know, I saw it real quick. That's one of my favorites.
So give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach a man how to fish, feed him for a lifetime. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. Okay. And what you give comes back tenfold. Mm-hmm. The other one was the career objective, right? So to be number one, you know, one in system 1, 3, 5, 7, nothing's changed in all these years, right? So to work in a creative environment will achieve both company and personal goals, to achieve high levels of performance while not compromising on ethics. Pretty standard sort of stuff for me. But I had clearly defined what I was going to do in 1999. And then the balance then was to be healthy, wealthy, and wise while I was trying to start a business, not an entrepreneurial journey. I just wanted to start a business that was smart. I didn't know it was going to turn into what it did. I did want to do an entrepreneurial journey, but I'd never been an entrepreneur before. You know, when I sold the company and I was asked to speak for Google, my wife even said, "Were you really an entrepreneur?" I said, "Well, yeah," because she just sees Scotty going to work, right? And the business is working really well and things are going good. You know, she goes, "Well, were you really an entrepreneur?" Because, you know, when you think of Bill Gates, he was an entrepreneur. But that's at that scale. Underneath that is all these other really successful people. And some of them you've never heard of. They're just running really good businesses,
Right.
And look, to be honest, I didn't know social media when I ran Renet. None. I just was not on social media. I mean, I didn't have the time for it, right? I had time for my staff, I had time for my clients, and I had time for myself and family.
I
That
have the
was it.
same experience with my VR agency. I didn't even have a social media profile at all.
No.
And I was able to run the business successfully and do all the sales and marketing, which is ironic, right? It
Yeah.
just social media has tenfolded in importance in the past 10 years, where now CEOs need to build a personal brand. But 10 plus years ago, it wasn't that way. You didn't really need that. So times have changed and we're all adjusting to that. But I think what I wanted to point out to my audience is your values are solid. And if people start off at any stage with any amount of wealth, with any dreams, the main thing that Scotty, you're telling us is that you knew even back then, these are the values I'm going to live by. These are my creeds. And I think that we need a reminder of that if you have a deeper mission, a deeper purpose of how you're going to do things, no matter what you do, you will apply those. So whatever business you create now or in the past or in the future, you'll always follow those rules that you like to live by: the healthy, wealthy, and wise, the teach a man to fish, getting back tenfold, the good karma. And I challenge the audience listening to take Scotty's words to heart and find your own creed. Think about what you stand for. Think about what your mantra is, because I don't think we're talking about that enough. We're always talking about systems like techniques and strategies, but what about who you are? What about that deeper layer of I'm rock solid, and no matter if I go from this business to another business to a third business, I'll always be the same Scotty or the same Krista. So I challenge the audience listening to listen to Scotty's words and try to figure out who you are, because the
Yeah.
strategies won't save you in the end. What will save you is who you are.
Yeah, totally. And that's why the system 1, 3, 5, 7 starts with one. Who are you? What do you want to do? Why are you there? All those really important questions. After that, everything else is easier. It's so much easier when you know who you are and what you want to do. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of business owners sort of do, they sort of do, but they really, as you said, it gets some real clarity, some real purpose or intention behind that. So that way it's clearly defined and everyone knows who you are and what you're doing. Pretty simple, right?
Pretty simple,
Yeah.
but pretty deep, and definitely very, very powerful, because systems will come and go, tactics, strategies, markets, everything changes, but who you are will never change. So if anything you take away from this, one of the things that helped me a lot was reading, and finding mentors, because that really opened my mind to the values and understanding I want that too. Those are values I'm so attracted to that I want to make those cornerstones of who I become. So even as a young person, that's how I developed my own values, was via reading and mentors, looking for people who inspired me on a very deep level, not because of what they'd achieved. Maybe that's what first attracted me to them, but mostly when I started getting into them, understanding who they really were and wanting to aspire to be such a good person. Not just, mentally or physically achievements, but really who I am. So I wanted to stress that, because I think not enough people are really ever talking about that part, right? And you represent that
Yeah.
really well.
And you know what? I do want to write a whole book on that too. So it's not the next book though. When I do my own can analysis, I think that, well, that's actually a book as well, the can analysis, how to actually look at conditions, actions, and needs. It's an entire book on its own with leadership and sales and business. But the next book I'm actually doing is, so the 5 systems was first, and now I'm doing the one on sales. So it's actually called the world's best sales systems, right? Because it is. I mean, I teach everyone sales. It's all I've done for 30 years. Every time I teach them the sales systems that I've used and got taught, well, they just have these epiphany moments and off they go. They sound like the guy you were talking to yesterday, where they can all of a sudden close deals. All of a sudden they can get paid what they're worth. They can actually go and have conversations and walk away with a check and a deal. And most people seem to struggle with that. And I'm talking all sorts of people. Like I've got clients now that are like professors and really smart people, but I can't seem to get paid. They don't really say that, but that's what they're saying. I can't get paid what I'm worth. How do I do it? How do I price it? How do I sell it? Here's some systems for you. So that's why that's the next book that I'm writing. In fact, it won't be far, and I'll be finished by the end of August, a bit of proofreading over September. And October, November, it should get released. All things being equal, unless I come up with a plan or a strategy to release it at a different date, it's imminent at the moment. But then after that, I'll probably write the canned book. And then after that, I'll probably write the one-on-one, which is what you were talking about before. The number one, what's the most important thing in the world? It's you, right? It's who you are, what you want to do, why you want to do it, what's in it for you, that balance, strive for healthy, wealthy, and wise, all your goal setting, all those important things, right? How old are you going to be in 10 years? What do you want to be in 10 years time? What do you expect to have in 10 years time? It's all those smart things. And that's definitely a book, but it's probably the 5th book I'll write.
Wow, you're on a roll. So I just want to shout out to my audience to please go to Scotty's website. All the details are going to be in the show notes, and sign up for his newsletter. Get on his mailing list, because Scotty gives away so much value. So not only are you going to find out about all these amazing books, the very first one that we're talking about today, the 5 systems that you need to buy immediately, but you're also going to get a glimpse into Scotty's world. He releases videos. He's got a community. He's right now talking about giving out news about his second book, which who doesn't want to know the secrets of sales, the best sales system in the world? I have yet to meet a single business owner who said, "Oh, I don't need any more sales. If I stopped selling right now, I'd be fine. I'd be fine." So even the most arrogant one yesterday, who told me he can close any deal, he's so confident in himself, but he'll probably die before then because he's going to burn out. That's what I foresee, the burnout moment. But the problem is, so many great, great, great people don't have those skills. They have amazing things inside of them to offer, but they don't know how to package them. They don't know what to do next. He talked about business judo, having a positive attitude, the win-win, the networking, leveraging, collaboration. We talked briefly about time duplication, which I really emphasized. So I was interrupting you because we've got 3 more to go. And then I hope everyone, we're out of time. We're out of time. So I hope everyone will go buy the book, because I understand that just in this one book, these 5 systems are giving you what I consider, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of coaching. Because if you can master these 5 systems, so we've talked about just 2 of them. Look how long we've been talking just about 2 of them. So, and this is all packaged into Scotty's book, which you can get for less than $1,000, I assume. So I would highly recommend.
You can pay $1,000. I'm happy with that.
But
and you'll get a free book.
Right. Even better, just buy thousands of copies. If you have a big company, get a copy for all your employees. That's something.
Well, I've done a few bulk orders already.
Yeah.
Yes, I sold in a company in Brisbane. I sent up 11 books yesterday to all their team members. Another accountant firm bought 20 books. There's another company in America, in Detroit, that was talking about buying books, but he'll just buy them on Amazon. So it is happening, right? People are now using it as their tutorials in the business, right?
Right.
And it started off at 250 pages. I simplified it down and got to the point a bit more, because I really wanted it to be an hour's worth of reading, but it turns out it's 2 hours. If you read it, I wanted it to be 1 hour flight in a plane, you could read it, but it ended up being longer. But it's about 2 hour read, and it gets to the point, and you can learn everything in that 2 hours. I do suggest people read it twice though, because the first time you'll go, "Oh, wow, that was good." The second time you'll start to understand it better and assimilate it into, how can I use that now in my business so I work smarter? So often it's the second read that'll get you that. So the first one will be, "Wow, that's really good." But you'll be so excited about reading it that you probably won't assimilate straight away and take action. And that's the most important bit, is action.
2 times, that's not enough. I compare you, Scotty, to the Stephen Covey of Australia. So Stephen Covey is a legend who wrote this American book about leadership and business. And I've read that book at least 10
Stephen
times.
Covey?
Yeah. I've read his book
Yep.
at least 10 times, and it never gets old because
I actually quote him quickly in my book.
oh, good. Okay. Okay. I don't even think he's still alive now, but his legacy lives on. And
Legacy lives on, yeah.
and I think that for me, you're on that level. So your book is very similar to that level. And I hope this book will become a staple in all businesses' library that they give to all their employees. So the 3 rules that we didn't cover are the business of thirds, the rule of 100, and sugar and cream. Let's do a really quick one on that.
Well, the good news is about the business of thirds and the rule of 100, just quickly, is they just exist. They're systems that just exist. You don't need to go and do anything except embrace them and harness them, understand them, and know they're there. So the business of thirds, there's the easy wins, the easy losers, the easy comes, the easy goes, but in the middle is all the opportunities. And that's what successful people tap into, is the opportunities in the middle. So there's not the false positives or the false negatives. It's the business opportunities in the middle. Anyway, when you read the book, you'll understand. Okay. And the rule of 100, it's about the checkpoints, right? The first 100 seconds, the first 100 minutes, hours, days, weeks, months. And those checkpoints, most people don't have the checkpoints. They know they've got to do follow-up in sales, for example. But when? Okay, well, here's the checkpoints. You're onboarding staff. Well, what's the checkpoints? Well, it's the first 100 seconds, the first 100 minutes, the first 100 hours, the first 100 days, So look on LinkedIn, how many people changed the job after just a few months because it didn't work out? It wasn't quite what they thought either way. Either they didn't get what they wanted or the other way around, or about 2 years. And it's not like Cinderella at the stroke of midnight. You look on LinkedIn, how many people were just in a job for 18 months or 2.5 years. So at about that 100-week mark, they're thinking, or that 7-year itch in marriage. It's called the 100-month mark. But once again, it's not like Cinderella. It's definitely a checkpoint. How many people change their jobs after 6, 7, or 8 years? They go, I've been here long enough. It's time to leave and start my own business, or it's time to find someone else that might have more opportunities for me in the future. Anyway, so that's the rule of 100, and it can actually go down or up. Okay, so it can be a countdown or on the way up. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
The example I give in the book is like the Olympics. Athletes use it as a countdown, 100 minutes before, 100 seconds before, so it's a countdown. Anyway, so that's that. The sugar and cream's an attitude. So that's where you stay sugar and you stay motivated, and you avoid things like car park disease and rich person's disease. And I explain what they are in the book, but that's when you become the cream and you stop doing the things that you did that made you successful. So you start thinking you've made it. And you did exactly that example when someone gets that first big deal and they go and buy something they didn't really need. Well, that's okay. But if you do that often and you do it often enough and you'll start thinking you're better than everything else, you'll start sitting in the coffee shop with your car parked out the front instead of going and prospecting, or instead of going and calling on people, or instead of developing more product, or instead of future planning the business. You start to sit and float. And don't float. Stay sugary, stay motivated, or become the spoon. Start motivating people, start encouraging other people. Duplicate yourself. Go back to time duplication. Anyway, so that's the 5 systems in a really helicopter view or an elevated view. That's the systems, and they all work. They all work concurrently, separately. There's no order to them. You can start with the 5th one, the 3rd one, the 2nd one. Doesn't matter. They just all work. And how you put it into your business, well, that's up to you to think about. Or your career. You don't even need to own a business. You could be a career person. You could be a really successful CEO of a company. The 5 systems still work.
I love it. I love this method. And I think sugar and cream is my favorite because I see a lot of people churning. And I'm from Silicon Valley. So one of my mantras, and it's even on my LinkedIn profile, it says, stay hungry.
Yeah.
So stay hungry is my motto, because
stay sugary. Absolutely.
I really don't ever want to let it go to my head. And I think as soon as you get fat and lazy, you're dead. You're a dead fish in the water, because there's a lot of hungry startups. There's someone who will outwork you. There's someone who is willing to go the extra mile. And it's just like an athlete. It's like, if you let it get, I've won all these competitions, boom, you're going to get beat the very next time by some young kid who no one's ever heard of, because your ego is carrying you and you've dropped the ball. So I love this sugar and cream, because that symbolizes what I say often about staying hungry.
Exactly. You nailed it.
Yes, I love it.
That's the essence of sugar and cream. You know, how often do you see that kid at school that had all the potential in the world, but didn't make it, and the other person who was behind them and under the radar persisted, trained,
Exactly.
didn't get cream, didn't get car park disease, running around the car park, listening and everyone patting them on the back saying how good they are. Nah, they kept training and doing all the things required. All of a sudden they're a professional athlete. You go, what happened to the other kid? What happened to Johnny? He was always in the news. He was always getting his photo taken. Got car park disease.
Wow. I love it. I love it. And the rule of 100 is very powerful too, because I think business owners don't understand the time frames, especially new entrepreneurs who haven't had all that experience under their belt like you or me. They don't understand that this is normal. There's these momentums of energy, like you're on the uprise, but if you let the ball drop, there's going to be a milestone that's very critical where you have to stay on your toes. So don't celebrate too early, or don't stop. Keep going a little bit further. Even if you think you've reached, you haven't yet. And people are always, they don't believe me. They're like, no, everything's good. I'm going to take a vacation now. And I said, no, don't do it. If you do, trust me, your competitor is going to come and take everything you just earned away from you. And they're like, how do you know? And I'm like, because I've been in business for plus 20 years. And I see this momentum happening, this energy peaks and flows and valleys. And I can see way ahead of you what's ahead on the road. And I don't know why, but it's like a universal thing for me. Like you just said, these milestones. And I have yet to see a business where this doesn't apply to. Maybe the time frames are a little bit different, and the market shifts, but there's always going to be a next milestone that you should get to, right? Where it's critical to have a process in place. Like, what's your onboarding process? What's your prospecting process? What's going to be your growth strategy? What's going to be that 3rd month marker that really gets the person to stay focused? You know, and I'm always looking ahead. So I'm like, we need to capture them now, because in, you know, the next 3 months, they're going to leave if we don't. Like, this is the moment to wow them, because they're going to renew their contract in 3 months. It's not at the very end where you wait to that last moment and they're like, yeah, I've already decided to leave you. No,
it's too late.
You've got to wow them at that 3rd month mark, because then their contract's up for renewal, but they're loving you so much, because too many people close a sale and then drop the ball. And then their customer, they don't realize that their customer is like, okay, you got what you wanted from me, and now you don't seem to care. And in the meantime, there's that young, hungry person behind coming in, starting to talk to them and be like, you know, you could come over to us and we treat our customer better. So those are those milestones that I love you talking about more, that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. So those are the 5 systems.
The systems the rule of 100 starts over and over again too.
Yeah.
Like it's perpetual. There's no one rule of 100. They're consecutive, and there's one for product, there's one for staff, there's one in the sales process. It's just consecutive, right? So but once you get it.
But most business owners don't. They think that it's all about closing the sale and then going out. Yeah. So they do the same 100, but on the opposite end. There's the prospecting, sale, and then they go right back to prospecting, sale, prospecting, sale. And they don't realize that that's not how it goes.
But it starts again. It starts again.
Yeah, it has to keep going.
You're welcome.
You have to, you know, and perfect. I love this, because I think that marriage works the same way. And I think that, so when you said 5 books, let's put in a 6th book about relationships, because that rule of 100, you mentioned the 7-year itch. So now we're going into a separate topic, but I just want to say your book, if you look at it from a deeper level, I can apply it to my personal life just as well as I can to my business life. So just take all these 5 systems and think, how can I take that and be the best in business? And then how can I take the same 5 systems and apply that to my relationships, to my health, to, you know.
Totally.
I love it. Thank you so much, Scotty. I loved having you on the show. Everyone is going to get in the show notes where to buy this amazing book, The 5 Systems of Successful People. I suppose we can get it on Amazon in any country you're in. And it's on
Amazon. I've self-published. It's only on Amazon or direct, but obviously Amazon's the best one.
Yeah.
Over time, I guess it'll get released further and further. But at this stage, just being a solo, I had a real goal, just so you know, even though it's sort of against the grain, I don't know if I'll do it for the next book, but to do it all on my own. So cover to cover was 100% me, because I had a real goal to leave a legacy, and it all needed to be mine. Now, with the 5 books, though, that's probably not going to happen because it's a lot of work.
Now that you've got one, you realized you're like, oh gosh.
I'll probably end up with a publisher somewhere and they'll be doing a lot of the work for me. But I really wanted to get that first one done. But I've accomplished that now. Goal achieved, goal ticked. Now it's about being smarter and bigger and better for the future. So there'll probably be publishers helping me with the next. And it'll probably end up in more bookstores and more online stores as that goes. So yeah, so watch this space.
I love it. And so, Scotty, do you have any parting words of advice? Like if you want to leave somebody who's just in the beginning of their journey and trying to figure things out, like, okay, this is one thing that I'm hearing. Is there one big encompassing message that you want to give to people?
Look, do I have one big encompassing one? It's probably not. There's so many things. It depends on what people ask me. But one of my favorite quotes is, if you're worth it and you can prove it, you'll get paid it. But you've got to be able to put all those things in place to prove it. So if you're worth it and you can prove it, you'll get paid it. So if you want to be a 6-figure person, you want to be a 7-figure person, you've got to go back into that process. So you can't just sit there and say, but I'm worth it, but I'm not getting paid it. Well, it's because you're not proving it. There's a bit in the middle, and that's action. It's activities. It's working smarter. So I'll just say it again. If you're worth it and you can prove it, you'll get paid it.
I love that. I love that. And what that entails in my mind is learning how to sell yourself. Really, that's that middle between knowing that you're worth it and letting other people know you're worth it is the whole sales marketing process.
It's actually the big tagline at the start of the next book. So this one's that. The next book has that as the tagline at the front.
Love it.
How do you prove if you're worth it? Well, that's your conversation you have with people.
Love it. Thank you so much, Scotty. This was awesome.